Hello YouTube, it is currently 10 p.m. as of the time of this recording, and as I was scrolling through Twitter, I saw that the official account for Honkai Star Rail released some information regarding Black Swan's character preview, which is going to give us some insight on what her kit's going to be upon her official release within a few days. So let's go ahead and quickly scroll through this and try and make this a short video. I don't want to take up too much of other people's time. So starting off, we can see that the art is really good. That is beautiful art. Her character overview. We have Black Swan is a DPS character capable of inflicting the enemy with Arcana. Through various means, Arcana is a unique form of dot. Black Swan can trigger various additional effects based on the number of Arcana stacks on the enemy. So this kind of gives us a little bit of information that based on the number of stacks, she's going to have different effects that's going to be tied in a little bit with her unique dot arcana. So moving on to her major traces, we have Viscera's Disquiet. I'm hoping I said that right. After using the skill to hit an enemy that has Wind Shear, Bleed, Burn, or Shock, each of these debuffs respectively has a chance of inflicting one extra stack of Arcana, and this is related to both her skill and her basic attack, I believe Decadence and False Twilight. Her second major trace is going to be Goblet's Dredges, which is there is a chance to inflict one stack of Arcana when a target enters battle. Every time an enemy target receives dot during a single attack by an ally, there is a chance for the target to be inflicted with one stack of Arcana. There is a limit to the number of Arcana stacks that can be inflicted on an enemy in a single attack. Which this has effect on her talent, Loom of Fate's Caprice. And then the last major trace, which is a very good one, Candle Flame's Portent. Increases damage dealt by this unit by an amount equal to a certain percentage of effect hit rate up to a limit, which has an effect on her talent. We've seen one character already that has a trace like this, which is going to be our 4-star Destruction Quantum Shui Yi. And this is a fantastic trait because our one thing with Nihility dot class characters is that you want to build up a certain amount of effect hit rates to guarantee those dot applications. And this trace is just going to like basically bolster it and reinforce it and give you that extra bit of damage for stacking on that effect hit rate. So you it's kind of acts as an additional damage multiplier for her rather than just a a required stat to apply the dot. Then just underneath that, we have her leveling materials. And you can see for the majority of this, you're actually going to be able to pre-farm all of this with the exception of the new one, which is Fiery Spirit, that you're only going to be able to farm from the related like trace material, like, oh, what are they called? The shadows or whatever, in the 2.0 patch. So moving on to the core of her kit. So starting off with the technique, at the beginning of the next battle, there is a chance to inflict a stack of Arcana on each enemy. If Arcana is successfully inflicted on an enemy, this effect will be repeated on the affected enemies until it fails to inflict Arcana on any of them. The re-trigger chance of inflicting Arcana will be lowered with each successful Arcana inflicted on the target. Basic attack deals wind damage to a single target enemy with a chance of inflicting one stack of Arcana, and if the hit target currently has Wind Shear, Bleed, Burn, or Shock applied to them, each respectively has a chance of additionally inflicting one extra stack of Arcana onto the enemy. Then going into her talent, Loom of Fate's Caprice, each enemy target has a certain chance at the start of each turn to be afflicted by a stack of Arcana for every instance of dot sustained. When afflicted by Arcana, enemy targets will receive Wind Dot at the start of each turn. Each stack of Arcana increases the damage multiplier, which is really good. The more stacks you have, the more damage that dot's going to do, which is then reset to 1 stack. There is a limit for the Arcana stacks. At the beginning of an enemy's turn, when Arcana causes damage, Black Swan will trigger additional effects that can be stacked based on the number of Arcana stacks inflicted on a target, which is something that was mentioned in the character overview. So starting at 3 stacks, if they have 3, inflicted wind dot to an adjacent enemies. Inflicts wind dot to adjacent enemies and has a chance of inflicting 1 stack of Arcana to adjacent enemies. So it's basically cleave damage when the enemy's turn starts. If they have 3 or more stacks, that win dot's going to basically be a cleave to adjacent enemies, and it has a chance of adding more stacks of Arcana to those enemies. And then if they have over 7 stacks, the dot afflicted this time ignores a certain percentage of the defense of both the target and the adjacent targets. So both basically in a cleave, the target and adjacent targets, it's going to ignore a percentage of their defense. And we know defense ignore is already a very strong stat because it's a 1-to-1 damage multiplier. So if you have 30% defense ignore or defense shred, it's going to be a 30% damage multiplier, which I believe Gotcha Smack has a video that covers over all of that. Now we have her skill. Deals wind damage to a single target enemy and any adjacent targets at the same time. There is a chance of inflicting 1 stack of Arcana on the target enemy and the adjacent targets. There is a chance of reducing the defense of the target enemy and the adjacent targets lasting for a certain number of turns. Again, her skill is going to basically be blast damage or cleave damage. I don't know if it's just going to be reduced damage on the adjacent targets. But basically it deals wind damage to a primary target and the adjacent targets, and it's going to have a chance of inflicting 1 stack of Arcana on the target enemy and adjacent targets. And then obviously the really good defense shred, allowing you to deal even more damage. So she's going to be a very high like defense shred kind of wind nihility dot unit. And then lastly, her ultimate, which I've seen this, the ultimate, like the animation for the ultimate is beautiful, like gorgeous. Bliss of Otherworld's Embrace. Applies Epiphany on all enemies for a certain number of turns. When affected by Epiphany, take more damage in their turn, and their Arcana effect is regarded as Wind Shear, Bleed, Burn, and Shock effects. In addition, when their Arcana effect is triggered at the beginning of the next turn, the Arcana stacks are not reset. Really good. We don't know how much energy, officially what she's going to give in terms of like how much energy she gains from her skill and basic, but it's going to be very important to keep uptime on her ultimate because of this effect specifically without trying to sacrifice any damage. So whether she can return, 4-turn, we'll have to wait and see on that. The stack non-reset effect can be triggered up to 1 time, so you get 1 non-reset of the stacks in Epiphany's duration, and its charges are replenished when Epiphany is applied again. Deals wind damage to all targets. And that basically covers the entire character preview. So kind of just summarize it up, basically she's going to be a wind dot nihility character that adds a lot of value through her defense shred, as well as additional effects that are going to buff her own damage through the Arcana stacks, as well as the very important major trace that you're going to be rewarded with additional damage multiplier by stacking on effect hit rate on her, which is already going to be required to guarantee those Arcana stacks. But that's basically going to be covering everything for tonight. I'm going to go probably to bed soon, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and have a good night.